It's been really cool to watch Hunt Wheels work its way up through the ranks over the past few years and climb into the ring with some of the industry's heavy hitters like Zip and Envy. Now, what started out as a company focused on making high-quality wheels accessible to the masses is also clearly seeking market share in the high-end, top echelon of cycling. Now, this is made abundantly clear by their newest gravel wheel offering, the full-carbon Hunt 42 Limitless Gravel Disc Wheels with CeramicSpeed coated bearings. In this video, find out what I like and dislike about them, and get my take on who these wheels are really designed for, and if you need some for your gravel rig. Alright, so for starters, let's get the basics out of the way. Now, these are Hunt's flagship carbon gravel wheel offering, and they come in two different flavors. There's the basic option, which uses standard smooth rolling but pretty run-of-the-mill Japanese EZO cartridge bearings. And then there's the top shelf model, which comes with CeramicSpeed's coated bearings, which I'll address in more detail later, but these premium bearings are the reason that this option will bump up the price by several $100s. Now, the ones I have here are in fact the premium CeramicSpeed option, as evidenced by the prominent branding on the hub shell. Now, it's not 100% clear on the website, but I do believe you can easily swap bearings, so if you do get the non-CeramicSpeed option, you can likely upgrade the bearings later if you so desire. You just won't get the laser printed graphics on the hub. Now, as far as dimensions, the stated depth is 42 millimeters, with an external width of 36 millimeters and an internal width of 25 millimeters, all of which checked out when using my digital calipers to verify. Now, the internal width of 25 millimeters is said to be aerodynamically optimized for tires ranging from 38 to 42 millimeters wide, which is a pretty common width for riding fast off-road terrain. Now, the weight of the wheels on my scale is 847.4 grams for the rear, 708.1 grams for the front, for a total of 1,555.5 grams for the pair, which is a hair over the stated 1,548 on the website, but totally forgivable since I weighed the wheels with tubeless tape and disc rotor lock rings already installed. Now, the wheels use 24 spokes front and rear for a balance of strength and low weight, and they're using the Polar wing spokes, which are butted and employ an arrow-bladed shape for improved aerodynamics. Now, as far as the hubs, it's no secret that Hunt wheels use rebranded Novatech hubs, and this wheel set is no exception, incorporating forged and CNC'd hubs made from high-quality 6061 T6 aluminum alloy. Now, while some will criticize the use of an off-the-shelf hub like this, I actually understand Hunt's motivation here. You have to keep in mind the hub shell itself is simply a rigid structure meant to house the bearings and provide flanges for the spokes to fan out to the rims. In other words, there's no moving parts on the hub itself. Now, I think the idea here is to spend money where it counts, like on the bearings, spokes, and rims, and not go crazy on a blingy hub shell, which will ultimately reduce the customer price while still providing a high-quality wheel set. I also like that these hubs allow you to switch between any axle standard and cassette system you like, which is nice in that it somewhat future-proofs your investment, allowing you to choose between quick-release or through-axle, or SRAM, Shimano, or Campy cassette systems, and any combination therein. Now, tubeless tire setup was pretty straightforward, and mounting these 43mm Gravel King SKs was as simple as any other wheel I've set up. Now, I really appreciate that the rims come pre-taped and that the valve stems are included. Armed with my Topeak Joe Blow booster pump and 2 to 3 ounces of stand sealant per tire, I was able to get up and running without too much fuss. One thing to note here is that I really think Hunt ought to include longer valve stems for these wheels, as these ones here are technically long enough, but barely protrude far enough to get the pump head to fully seat on the Presta valve. Now, if they included a valve stem that was maybe 5 to 10 millimeters longer, it'd be just perfect. And then, of course, there's the hub sound. The 7.5 degrees of engagement will certainly have you climbing more efficiently when the going gets tough, and yes, it does sound like a swarm of angry bees. Now, if you're concerned about this noise detracting from your otherwise peaceful ride, you can quiet it down quite a bit by lightly greasing the pawls on the inner side of the Freehub. Now, I've done this on my personal set of Hunt 35s, and it's not silent, but certainly more bearable now. So of course the big question, how do they actually ride? Well, over the past few weeks, I've had a chance to take these out on some smooth roads, as well as some pretty chunky off-road stuff. And it's no surprise that I've been really pleased with their performance overall. They're really smooth rolling on the road, and they seem to hold speed really well. They're light and flickable, which makes climbing less of a chore, and dare I say, more enjoyable. I don't know. I do know that the difference between these wheels and the stock alloy wheels that came on my 2021 Specialized Diverge is huge. Now I did a video a while back discussing the stock wheel and tire setup, which was a pretty beefy 4 kilograms for the full setup. Now this full setup here is a full kilogram lighter, and it really does make a big difference in the ride experience. I would say coming from stock, this is definitely not in the marginal gains category. Now during hard efforts, the wheels really feel like they're working for you rather than against you, as they're really stiff and they just feel really efficient. Now for this reason, it's also really important to get your tire pressure right when heading off-road, because if you've got too much air in your tires, that stiffness in the wheels can actually feel amplified and you start to get ping-ponged around a little bit. But you shouldn't let this deter you, as this is pretty much the case for all stiff carbon wheels. Rest assured that once you do dial in your tire pressure, which most often will be less than you think, the ride experience down the chunk is really nice. Now I've mentioned this in a previous video as well, but you might think that a stiff wheel paired with a squishy tire are two properties that would kind of fight each other. In other words, they're kind of opposites at face value. But in my experience, they actually serve to complement each other, as you feel fast and efficient, presumably because of the stiff foundation, but then you get that added compliance from the tires at the contact point. Now, for reference, I weigh about 155 pounds, and I've been experimenting with tire pressures in the range of 28 to 34 psi up front, and 30 to 36 psi in the rear on these 43mm Gravel King SKs. And honestly, I think I could go even a bit lower without any negative side effects. And then of course, there's a big question of whether the CeramicSpeed bearing upgrade is worth it or not. Now, fortunately for me, and by extension you, my own personal wheel set is the Hunt 35 carbon gravel disc wheels with regular EZO cartridge bearings. So I do have a reference point from which to compare. Now, what I will say about the CeramicSpeed bearings is that they certainly do feel smooth. There's no arguments there. However, if I'm being completely honest, a fresh set of EZO bearings, which can be had for a few dollars, feels about the same in my experience. Now, my personal belief is that the benefit of the super premium CeramicSpeed bearings is well within marginal gains territory. Now, reading through some of the literature put out by CeramicSpeed, it's clear that they're pursuing absolute optimization, and elite cyclists looking for any edge over the competition will certainly benefit from them. Now, in one simulated calculation, not real-world testing, they claim that a bike equipped with a full CeramicSpeed upgrade, which includes not only the hub bearings, but also the bottom bracket, oversized pulley wheels on the rear derailleur, and a proprietary chain, could save you between 10 and 16 watts, which at the conservative end translates to a 35-second savings on a 40-kilometer flat course riding at a speed of 48 kilometers per hour. Now, for an elite time trialist, this could certainly mean the difference between a podium finish or not. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, the company claims that one could save over 18 minutes on a hilly 180-kilometer course at an average pace of 32 kilometers an hour, which certainly does sound like a lot. However, those numbers also suggest that in order to reap that time savings, you'd have to be riding consistently at that speed for more than 5.5 hours, which not all of us do on a regular basis. Now, there's an additional benefit of using the CeramicSpeed bearings, which is that they are hand-built and used hardened grade 3 silicone nitride ball bearings, which is a fancy way to say that they are tougher and smoother than traditional ball bearings. And toughness in this context is not the colloquial term for big and bad. It's actually a fundamental material property which quantifies a material's ability to absorb energy and deform without fracturing. Now, this all equates to a smoother rolling, longer lasting bearing, 7 times longer apparently, which means you won't need to replace your cheap cartridge bearings nearly as often. So if you don't service your own bearings and you were to pay a shop to replace your standard wheel bearings 7 times, then I suppose you could argue that these bearings, which are nearly 2 orders of magnitude more expensive, are a worthwhile investment, as they would offset the labor charges associated with 7 professional hub overhauls. Anyways, what I think I'm trying to say here is that while there is a lot to consider, I'm perhaps not convinced that the CeramicSpeed bearing upgrade is absolutely necessary for an average rider who can service their own hubs whenever necessary and who also doesn't race. Now, about aerodynamics and crosswind forces. The depth of the rims at 42 millimeters is creeping up toward legitimate aero wheels, and for many, the crosswind effect will become a real concern. Now, this is of course when the bike and the rider get pushed laterally due to a gust of wind coming from the side, which can be unsettling and in some cases unsafe. Now, in my experience so far with these wheels, thankfully there haven't been any instances where I'm fighting the wind to hold a straight line, but in a couple of cases I certainly did feel a bit of displacement during stronger gusts of wind. But comparing to my older set of 50mm depth Yoleo Chinese carbon wheels, it was really no big deal at all. Now, it can be easy to get wrapped up in the science and the claimed benefits of the aero-optimized U-shape rim profile, but in this particular case, I do think that the more rounded aero profile does actually have something to do with crosswind stability. Nonetheless, I personally didn't think that there were any negative effects of the 42mm depth, but also keep in mind that I'm not a fast rider by any means, and if I can average 15 miles an hour over a long ride, I'm doing pretty good. Faster riders, of course, will experience greater aerodynamic benefits, as well as drawbacks. Okay, so to summarize, I really like these wheels. Let's be totally clear about that. They're fast, they hold speed well, they feel really light and flickable, but at the same time, they feel really strong. And I never really felt that I had to be delicate with them. Now, I would personally use these wheels on a bike that sees a lot of mixed terrain riding, as they can be fast on the road, but they also hold up really well when the going gets tough. So is there anything I didn't like about the wheels? Not too much. Again, the included valve stems should really be 5 to 10 millimeters longer to be practical for everyday cyclists who use normal floor pumps. Also, the wheel set can be considered to be pretty expensive, but at the same time, these are the flagship offering. And thankfully, there's a pretty wide range of wheel offerings covering many different budgets. Now, lastly, something that I haven't mentioned yet are the graphics. Now, I totally understand that the flagship model should stand out a little bit to really draw some attention, but in my personal taste, the abstract, sort of overhanging Hunt logo printed on the rims is a bit too much for me. Personally, I prefer a more subdued look. Now, perhaps if it wasn't so much contrast between the black rim and the white logo, like if the logo were a dark gray color, or even like a gloss black logo on, say, a matte black rim. But of course, this is all subjective, and most of you probably care more about outright performance anyways. Now, would I opt for the premium CeramicSpeed option? In my case, likely not, as I wouldn't be able to justify the substantial price jump for what I feel is a pretty marginal gain. However, if you are an elite cyclist for whom every second matters, then I can certainly see justifying the cost, especially since even the CeramicSpeed Hunt 42s are still priced lower than similarly spec'd wheel offerings from other premier brands like Zip and Envy. Now, in a future video, I'm planning to compare several wheels from Hunt, including these 42s, my own 35s, and the more entry-level alloy 4 Seasons gravel disc wheels, at which point I'll discuss my thoughts from a broader perspective and shed my experiences across the Hunt wheels range. Alright, so that's going to do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed getting this close look at the newest gravel offering from Hunt Wheels. And if you got something out of it, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more videos like this. As always, thanks for watching and thanks for subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.